Hello and welcome to episode 348 of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk
filmmaking,
from indie film to studio films and
high-end TV and everything in between.
how to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to
Royally F them up.
in our very, very humble opinion. I am Giles Alderson.
I am Dom Lenoir.
This, as you know, is a filmmaking podcast, and we are both filmmakers. After last week's wonderful shenanigans with Christopher McQuarrie, we thought we'd do a part two, didn't we, Dom?
We did.
We thought we'd carry on this Mission Impossible.
We kind of put together this kind of holy trinity of story, and we're looking at it from a director's perspective, we're looking at it from a writer's perspective, an editor perspective, and a performance. So it's kind of all of the three nuggets of basically making a good film that people care about with good characters and good writing.
And we're very lucky to have on the show, and I'm sure you know already from seeing the headline, Simon Pegg and Rebecca Ferguson, as well as editor Eddie Hamilton. It's an absolute winner of an episode. All three of them were incredible with us, and we had a fantastic time.
Some of Rebecca's credits include Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation, and Fallout, Life, The Snowman, a magnetic performance in The Greatest Showman, Dr. Sleep, Brilliant Reminiscence, June, and many more, including her brand new series Silo, which you should definitely take a look at on Apple TV.
Simon Pegg, in case you don't know, is a wonderful actor. He's a producer, he is a writer, and some of his credits include Shaun of the Dead, which really blew him out of the water as a leading man. Followed it up with Hot Fuzz, The World's End with Edgar Wright, the three films they made as a Cornetto trilogy. He's also starred in Star Trek as Scotty, and he's starred as Benji Dunn in, shall we say, 5 Mission Impossible films, if we're including Dead Reckoning Part 2. He's been doing it for nearly 20 years. Also, the post-production demystified, a Zoom course for producers and directors. It is Saturday, July the 22nd from 1 p.m. UK time onwards. We have teamed up with the Cutting Room to offer a comprehensive walkthrough of the entire post-production process. More info to that is in the show notes. So let's get to it. This is Simon Pegg and Rebecca Ferguson talking to myself and Dom Lenoir.
Hi, lovely to meet you.
Double trouble.
Hi.
Double trouble, that's what we're known
Come
as.
in.
What's your t-shirt there?
It's Cowboy Bebop.
Oh,
You a
Do you
fan?
not
or?
know it?
deep cut. I know of it.
Okay, yeah, it's very good.
And Top Gun. I mean, God, look at that. You're just a walking movie.
Merchandise,
Merchandise.
human merchandise.
He's a merch stand.
Yes.
This is fun. Do you always do things together?
Yeah, we've got a bit of a bromance going on.
I love
Nice.
it.
Just makes it more fun. and
It's
easier
much
to-
more fun.
He's funnier than me.
Sometimes.
We'll be the judge of that.
My Mission
I'm
Impossible.
funnier than him.
I had a Mission Impossible pun, but it's not very good, so I wasn't going to use it.
You've said it now. You're gonna have to.
Wait, you do?
Mission Impossible. Yes.
Ah,
There
they're
we
a
go.
podcast.
Yeah.
See?
Gods,
Got it.
Shame they weren't recording, actually.
I know.
That's what we should have done.
I know. We'll have to repeat it.
I might say it and then
We should
pretend
have-
it's mine.
Okay.
Yes. Steal it.
Are we recording?
We should say really quickly. 1, 2, 3.
Cool.
Hello.
Hello, Mission Impossible.
That was mine.
Stolen.
Dash it.
Pun.
Sorry.
It's as if you knew the podcast.
Sorry, it's,
Isn't
just,
it?
it's in us.
It's in you.
Bees.
Welcome to the Filmmakers Podcast.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
We love the film. Honestly, it was
Almost too
fantastic.
much.
Yes, almost too much. Like giddy schoolboys grabbing
Yes.
each other and saying how much we loved it.
Good.
And your characters in this are just so well refined now because you've been in it for so long, and we just really felt that came across so well, didn't we?
We are the best.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say,
You're the best too.
I think you two really have brought so much heart to the franchise. I want to start with you, Rebecca. I mean, I remember when you came into Rogue Nation, and I remember being absolutely blown away because every scene was so incredibly emotionally present. Every fight scene, it felt like
Just look forward.
every fight scene.
Sorry, it's really,
It felt like life and death, and even going forward to this one, it's like you've captured what some people in a marriage would take a lifetime to sort of get in terms of romantic feelings. How do you get that presence and the spontaneity of being not predictive of what you're going to do next in a Hollywood film?
It's a big one. Go for it.
Take a drink.
Take
your time.
it out.
We've got 8 minutes
No,
left.
I think a quick answer is McHugh. For me, from the beginning, I was offered a couple of pages, and the pages contained so much character from day one for me. There was mystery. You talk about romance. I think for me, it's mystery. It's an unsolved mystery for herself. It's that constant battle, which I find interesting for all of us in the show as well, of good versus bad, selfish versus group, a repercussion of an event chosen by someone else, the larger picture or our single self. And I think that is what I love about her. It is her love for Tom, her love for Ethan, but it's also what is needed to be done. I like the fact in many scenes she kept on saying, but they cut it out, why are we doing this? Why can't we let other people do it? Why do we have to be the ones to...
That's because it wasn't in the take. You were saying that about the film.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Why do we... I was on such a roll.
Shot down.
Chris McQuarrie wrote a really good script and I acted it. You know, bish, bash, bosh,
That's the answer.
Yeah.
That's the
quick
explanation.
answer.
That's the soundbite we wanted. Thanks
Yeah.
very much.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I do.
Mystery.
And I think enigmatic is definitely, it's not knowing what you're going to do next. I think that's kind of one of the main things I find so exciting about your performance.
And independence. She's not, you know, even if there's a team, we're all kind of independent within the team, which is really important.
It is. And I suppose the same for you as well, because like when we first met Benji, you'd be so surprised that he's still alive.
Yeah,
Oh, I know.
I often am, constantly.
You know.
Absolutely.
How did you feel about that? And working with that team, like you say, and everything compared to something like, you know, the Shawn or the Hot Fuzz stuff, where it's still a family. And this is now another family, I suppose.
Well, I've been lucky enough to play a character over 17 years in 5 different films and grow him as I went, you know, and have him, in every film, he's the product of what's just happened to him. So he was a wet behind the ears lab technician, terrified to even break a rule. And now he's a fully fledged member of the... Do you love me?
I love you. But I was thinking, yeah, you're fucking driving that boat like there's no tomorrow.
Yes, which you did do.
Yeah, I drove that
boat very well.
Very
Yeah,
well.
I am a qualified boat driver.
Motorbikes, boats, it's all
I
the
actually
same
got
thing.
to Venice like 3 hours before we shot the scene when Benji's driving around the canals.
Yeah.
And I was taken out by Wade, our stunt coordinator, taught to drive this very expensive little water taxi.
TikTok, you got an hour and a half.
And then I was in it, you know.
Wow.
And I crashed the boat.
Because I heard you crash, but I didn't
But
think it was a
nothing was
real
hurt,
thing.
no monuments.
No.
You didn't get hurt, just ego.
I was trying. It's so narrow, those things. And when you drive a boat, you have to kind of think into the future because
It's
you do
art
this.
when they do that.
Yeah. And I just scraped up against this concrete jetty. I heard the entire crew's buttocks just go like that.
Yeah.
Because it was an expensive
Production
boat.
crying
300
inside.
grand.
300 grand.
Yeah. And I crashed the
Out
BMW.
of your own pocket.
I was going to say, you know, that's your fee for the 17 years.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
gone. Just gone.
Thank you, Cornetto.
So how do you go about rehearsal, sort of preparing for a character? Because you're obviously known as a comedy actor, but there's you do a lot of sadness,
You
you
have
do
feelings in
anger.
this.
I can do
You
sadness
you
and
have-
anger.
You know, there's a real like grounding I think you bring to these films
Yeah.
in these moments. Like, how do you sort of? Is it rehearsal? Do you talk to the director? How do you fit those extra moments into your character to sort of give them depth?
Well, McHugh's really collaborative, isn't he? And he always wants us to bring our parts of ourselves into the roles. And Tom and McHugh are so... Everyone talks about the stunts, but it's the thing that they really concentrate on is character, because they know the stunts aren't going to mean jack shit if you don't care about the people that are involved in them. And so we get a lot of opportunity to kind of like... And on set, we don't get much rehearsal time, do we? But once we're in the scene, we'll hone it and hone it and hone it until it all really works well. So...
We don't get rehearsal time. We also sometimes don't have scripts. So sometimes we get to see them act out what they think should happen, and it is a piece of art watching them work.
Yeah, yeah.
Simon crashes the boat, for instance.
Simon
Yes.
crashes the boat, he rocks up late, he's
But McHugh will be behind
but-
the camera and he'll go, quieter, more,
Yeah.
slightly more poignant.
Yeah,
And
look down.
Look down.
Open your
Part
lips.
your lips.
don't blink.
Don't blink. Cock your head.
But other than that, we're free.
Yeah.
And how do you find that then? Like, say, like with all the other stuff you do, and suddenly you're going into something that is just, okay, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
It's bonkers.
Right? Tell us
Terrifying.
about that. Terrifying.
Well, there's always a degree of tension running alongside the actual, the tension in the scene is always paired
Built
with
up
a
by
real
reality
tension.
of the
Internal
show.
tension.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's chaos. It's always something. I remember one scene we're in Morocco on a rooftop. Once again, they cut the scene for some reason. I'm in it. I don't know what's happening. And the sun is going down, and Tom is looking at me, and the camera is on me, but Tom is looking at the sun because the sun is going down, and then all of a sudden there's a prayer, and then there's a donkey, and he's going, do it quicker, do it quicker, do it slower, do it slower, do this, put your hair behind the ear. And I'm giving him this whole, why are we doing this? And after a while I went, stop it! And he's just burst out laughing because he knows, but we have the pressure of the world. The sun's going down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it difficult fitting in those kind of technical directions when you're trying to do sort of an
We
internal
laugh so much.
internal performance, really, above everything else?
It's tricky, but we're paid to act. We're actors. That's what we do.
Sometimes it's maddening, and you're kind of like,
I want one director.
I know, and McHugh, you got it right because McHugh will go continue.
Continue.
That's when you got it. You nailed it. Because what he's looking for is stuff to work with. You write a movie. Not in this case, but usually you write a movie on the page, you say it out loud, you edit it. The writing continues right up until the film is locked, because in the edit, you have all the visual language that you then put together. So McHugh wants every single piece that he
It's
can
music, isn't it? And then Eddie, the editor, rocks
Simple.
up and
Eddie
he goes...
the editor, back to drunk.
He is actually called Eddie, isn't he?
Our editor is
Yeah.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah.
Classic.
And he makes you look even more amazing than you are.
I know, because we're
In
rubbish.
real life.
Although you're already amazing.
Wow,
so-
let's go.
Exactly. yeah, that's it. Listen, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Really
Thank
brilliant.
you.
We could have chatted.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible.
There we
No,
go.
Podstable.
Podstable.
In Mission Impossible.
It's close.
That's a
I mean,
slightly
that could be
boring
the English
spin-off.
remake we could do in Huddersfield.
Mission in Huddersfield.
Yes. That'd be cool. You did shoot in Yorkshire. But anyway,
Yeah, we
we've
did.
got to wrap up.
Yes.
I'm literally doing this.
Always too quick.
Thank you very much. That was awesome.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, Dave.
Well, that was pretty spectacular.
That was amazing.
If you haven't seen yet, this was actually a filmed interview, and we made it into a fun little video, which you can see on YouTube and some of the clips on Instagram. It's well worth a watch. It was tremendous fun, and also it was very nice to find out that two such talented people are actually very nice in person as well.
So, yes, absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. It was only short, but who cares?
Yeah.
It was great, right?
Very sweet.
Very sweet.
Yeah, and it was such a pleasure to chat to them both, because they've both made such a massive impact on the franchise, and as we said in the interview, they really do bring a lot of heart to the films.
Speaking of ace characters, our third guest on the podcast this week is Eddie Hamilton. Eddie, it's amazing how Eddie got involved, actually, but some of his credits include Mean Machine, Swept Away, Resident Evil Apocalypse, DOA, Dead or Alive, Freebird, Gone Fishing, Chris Jones's short.
He also edited Kick-Ass, which was an absolutely groundbreaking film at the time. Event 15, The Loft, Kingsman: The Secret Service, Stowaway, Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation, Kingsman: The Golden Circle, Mission Impossible: Fallout, Top Gun: Maverick, arguably one of the best edited films of the last 10 years, and
Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 and also Part 2. But we won't see that for at least another year. What did we talk about with the fantastic Eddie? What will our amazing listeners get from this?
we talked about working on Top Gun Maverick and how to create that incredible emotion and pace. We talked about troubleshooting story structure and cutting action scenes, and also having a wealth of different performance choices from the top actors in the game on Mission Impossible.
And we also talk about how they worked with no script. I mean, it's hard enough trying to do that on an indie film. Imagine doing it on Mission Impossible, and that's how they work on these movies. We also talk about what it's like working on a timeline, why it's just a pile of ingredients, and why movies in post only come good in the last 2 weeks.
So just to be aware, as a sort of fairly important disclaimer, there are spoilers in this podcast about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, so be aware that what you're getting into.
Also, huge shout out to Colin Gowdy, fantastic editor in his own right, who gave us some really lovely questions. We didn't get a chance to actually say that while we were recording, but Colin, thank you. Right, let's get to it, shall we? This is myself and Dom chatting to Eddie Hamilton, all about editing, not just Mission Impossible, not just Top Gun, but editing in general, and how you can have a career doing it. This is fabulous. You're going to love it. Enjoy.
Hello, friends.
Hello.
Hello.
Got something special for you here, Eddie.
Go on, what have you got?
There we go.
Oh, very cool. Where did you get that?
Jane from Paramount gave it to us.
Fantastic.
When we were doing all the Top Gun promotions.
That's so good. I will tell you that this hat I
Yeah.
got at Lemoore at the real Top Gun, right?
Oh,
At Lemoore,
wow.
the Naval
Okay.
Air Station Lemoore. When we were filming there, we were allowed to go into the actual Top Gun, and they have a little souvenir store that they open like 3 mornings a week for people to buy stuff.
That's extremely
So,
exciting.
and this is the original hat that Tom Cruise has in the original Top Gun. Like you see it sitting on the bar at the end of the
Wow.
first movie. So I had to get one of those.
Impressive.
Yeah,
I'm going to take mine off now because it's very hot. But
I'm very happy to be on, guys. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to talk to you both.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. I mean, obviously, look, your career is wonderful anyway, and we could get into your whole backstory, but there's so much we want to dive into because obviously you worked with Matthew Vaughn a lot, and you'd worked in those circles a lot. You'd done X-Men, and suddenly now you're doing Rogue Nation. How did it come about? They were shooting in London, but
So it's interesting. I'd worked with Matthew, obviously. I mean, I first met Matthew in 2001 when I ended up working with him on Mean Machine, which was a low budget movie. Well, it's £6 million budget, I think, with Vinnie Jones playing football in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked on that with him, and that led on to a kind of very long collaboration, really. It led on to Kick-Ass, it led on to X-Men First Class, which I worked on with Lee Smith, who's obviously a proper legendary editor. He had just done Inception when we did X-Men First Class. I was gutted when he didn't get an Oscar nomination for that film. And then straight after X-Men, he did The Dark Knight Rises. So he was right at that kind of the peak of the Nolan. And then obviously eventually got an Oscar for Dunkirk. But it was very interesting to collaborate with Lee Smith and see how he dealt with the studio and with Matthew, and how what he was amazing at is he would fast forward through the creative process and virtually always only put stuff on the timeline that he thought was actually going to make it into the movie. He would be quite happy to, throw away loads of material if he was like, this is only a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10. And if it's going to be in the movie, eventually it has to be just a 10 out of 10, shot. If you're assessing shots as an editor, because I always leave things quite long. And then eventually when you're compressing and compressing and compressing and compressing, which is all you do as an editor after you've assembled something which is unwatchable and very long and boring, quite frankly, your job is to compress it as much as possible, so that you're telling the maximum amount of story in the minimum amount of time, while still making it comprehensible and geographically clear, and there's stakes and you care about the characters and all that stuff. But he was very good at not overloading his sequences to begin with, which I learned a lot from. And then I did Kingsman with Matthew, and when we were, and that was quite an interesting film because I did work. I started 6 weeks before they started rolling cameras on that film, because they filmed the skydive first, the skydive sequence in Kingsman. They filmed it. They filmed about, I'm thinking whether it was like 6 days of photography of skydiving. And then it took me about 6 weeks to edit it, because there was 15 hours. I remember 15 hours or so of footage. And then I built a first pass of that skydiving scene, which I think is only about 3 minutes in the movie.
right.
But then when we were doing the sound mix on Kingsman, I remember my agent called me and said they want to talk to you about doing Mission Impossible. And I was very confused because, I had never done a film on my own of anything approaching that budget level.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, quite honest. And also they were starting to film in 2 weeks. So either a lot of other editors had said no, or they'd left it to the last minute. And they just were desperate for somebody. Plus I was British, so they didn't have to fly in an American. Plus I was very cheap because I hadn't done any big movies. And so I'm 99% certain that they were like, let's give him a shot. And we'll probably have to replace him eventually with an American editor, but let's just see how he does. That I never heard anyone say that. That's just knowing producers and how they work and how they like to hire very experienced people and pay them very well, because they know that the movie's in safe hands. And I do understand that as a producer, if you're dealing with such a significant investment, when you hire very experienced people, there's a certain security that comes with that. And so I do understand why the best people keep getting hired, So, but I went in to meet Chris McQuarrie at Leavesden Studios. Right. This would have been in like summer 2014.
And this is his first directing, of the Mission Impossible series, right?
Yes. So he had done Jack Reacher.
Yeah. Yes, with Tom.
And he had done, he had worked very closely on Ghost Protocol, as you've probably read,
Yes. And
for months of rewrites on that with Brad Bird and Tom Cruise.
Yes.
And he had done Valkyrie with Tom. And it was actually Valkyrie that led into Ghost Protocol, as I understand it.
Yes.
And there was no script. So all I could do is, he had a lot of images of like the Taurus and the Vienna Opera House and things. He had like concept art on the wall. And I remember like having a chat with him and asking if he was going to film anything on IMAX, 70 millimeter IMAX 15 perf. And he was like, we've done some tests and we're not sure. And in the end, it was cost prohibitive, I think, really, to do that. But we chatted, and I'm a real movie nerd. Like, I've lived and breathed movies since the age of 8. I'm super passionate about the audience experience on the big screen. It's my church, going to the movies. And so that kind of enthusiasm, I think, goes quite a long way when you meet somebody. They really like enthusiastic people who are committed to excellence and share the same passion for filmmaking that they do. And it's interesting, when you meet a kindred spirit like that, it's almost an unspoken connection of just like, okay, we're both movie nerds and we can respect each other on that level, Yeah. And it's quite fun. And anyway, I had a meet. I suppose I chatted to him for 90 minutes, and then
a feature-length chat.
Yeah, it was. Yes. It was quite a long chat, and I had a little tour. I think it took me to the art department, and so I got to see a little bit of what was going on. And obviously, I was thinking, well, they're never going to hire me for this. It's amazing to be considered, but they're never going to hire me for this. And then they provided me with a car to drive me back into central London from Leavesden Studios. And 10 minutes into the journey, my phone rang, and Ben Rosenblatt, who was the post supervisor at Bad Robot, called me and he said, "So they really like you. Can you start on Monday?" And I was like, "What? Are you offering me this job? This is insane." He says, "There's one catch, which is we've already hired the assistant editors because we had to hire people because it was getting down to the wire. And so we've hired people that we know." And so I was kind of parachuted into a ready-made team, which, was fine. And they were all terrific. And we had a great time working on it ultimately. And that was my first kind of experience to Chris McQuarrie's genius as a storyteller and a filmmaker, because Rogue Nation, initially, when I was sort of putting, like, sketching the movie, that's what I call it, a first assembly, I call it a sketch. It was quite long and quite confusing, and a lot of the first half didn't make sense, and there were a lot of scenes that I didn't get. I was like, I'm not sure where this is going, and I don't know really where to focus the edit. So I was like quite worried about the film, because I'd never experienced something where they are rewriting the script on a daily basis based on everything they've learned about the production and the characters and everything they're discovering along the way. And so it was all that experience was very new for me. Anyway, Chris McQuarrie sat down and we looked at the first scene, and he said, "Let's take a look at this." And we recut the first scene in an hour, and it was 1,000% better. And I was like, wow. But what's interesting is he rejected about 2/3 of his own coverage because he didn't like it, and he used like the last 3 setups to cut the whole scene. And I had tried to kind of incorporate a lot of the coverage that he had shot, but he, in his mind, he had like been discovering the scene as he went, and then he found it in like the last 2 or 3 setups, and in his mind he'd already rejected the first few setups. And so we recut the scene, and it was incredible. Like, it was an eye-opening experience. But also he would throw out lines of dialogue and rewrite lines, and it's an organic process, editing with Chris. And because he's the writer, he can just say, I know, let's just cut out the first half of the scene and take the lines from here and move them earlier and bounce off this reaction and focus the scene more from this character's point of view and do this, do that, add a couple of extra lines. Let's go and pick up a close-up of this and a close-up of that. And he transformed it in like an hour and a half. And I was just there in awe. Like, I was doing a little bit because I was calling up the shots and reviewing stuff with him, and I have a system I built up where I create massive line strings, which is quite common with editors, but it means that on your timeline you have different video tracks, and on each track there's a different setup. So, and for each line of dialogue, you've got all the options stacked up. So you can go, here's the first line of dialogue that Tom Cruise says, and you've got like the coverage on this character with Tom off screen, the coverage on that character with Tom off screen, the wide shot, the medium, the over, the close. So you've got every single option of that line from Tom Cruise, and he's very thorough. We do go through it all because, in Chris's mind, there is no script. So he kind of writes a rough outline of the scene on the morning that they shoot it. Yeah. And then they discover it as they're shooting.
It's almost like documentary making. It has elements of that, doesn't it?
You've got an incredible storytelling genius at steering the ship in a direction, and if he doesn't like it, he will just slightly course correct and steer it. But he kind of has a destination in mind. He has a feeling that he wants to create, but he does very much rely on the actors that he casts to feed into the characters that he discovers, the antagonists for Ethan Hunt, and the allies for Ethan. Like Hayley Atwell's character in Dead Reckoning Part 1, she had done like 100 days of principal photography before she even knew the name of the character. And then the first scene that we did, the first dialogue scene that she did, which had anything to do about her backstory at all. I assume you guys have seen the film now, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so the scene in the library, in the Rome library, where Ethan and Grace first sort of have a proper sit down and a chat. And that was filmed at Senate House at the University of London, right in central London. And there's a beautiful library there, and they managed to film the wide shots, of which none of them are in the film because Chris doesn't like wide shots that much. But they also filmed all of Tom's coverage, but they didn't film Hayley's coverage because they ran out of time that day. So they rebuilt the corner of the set with Hayley 8 months later, and they filmed the second half of the dialogue scene 8 months later, when she eventually got to do all her acting about her character, all that stuff about her backstory, and so for her, she had to embrace this. And I did sit down and like have a chat with her at the beginning and go, Vanessa Kirby felt like this, and Fallout, she was really at sea and was very unsure of herself as an actress, because she was like, I have no idea if what I'm doing is any good. I don't understand what I'm doing. And it's interesting. She discovered this kind of delicious, kind of flirtatious vibe with Tom. The first scene of Vanessa Kirby filmed was the scene in Fallout where they're standing by the River Seine.
Their first meeting, right? Yes.
Yeah, that was the scene that they did. And Rebecca Ferguson is stood on the bridge in the background. And the last shot is her kind of turning and walking off. And I remember it took a while, but on this film, Vanessa Kirby was totally relaxed and happy to play and give us all kinds of variety of performance. And then, I think when I said to Hayley, look, we're only going to put great stuff in the film. You have to trust us, and you have to play, and you have to feel totally safe. You can try anything you want, but we will find and discover and really carve a precise character for you. So when you eventually see it, it will all just feel natural and normal, like it was meant to be. And she got on board with that quite quickly and actually enjoyed the process. But it was, we were on set for I mean, we were filming bits of part 2 as well, but we were rolling cameras for like 2 years or something on and off. So it was a long time, a really long shoot. But you've seen the film, and it's a very ambitious, very complicated film. There's not a single easy sequence in the entire movie.
No.
And it's like a really, really detailed jigsaw puzzle, which is why it takes so long to film all these tiny little pieces of coverage on all the actors and, every little, and everything Chris McQuarrie directs. He never punts it to a second unit ever,
No, it's incredible. How do you keep your focus during that time? So let's say that scene, for instance, in the library you're talking about, that length of time before you get to do Haley's scene. How do you keep your concentration to jump back into it?
So the thing is, I'm very thorough when I break down the footage. And so I did a thorough pass of all of Tom's coverage, and I built the scene using the kind of wide shot as Haley's angle, or sometimes I would just put a black card and a black slate, and I'd put a card saying close up Grace. And so I had already kind of built half of the scene on the timeline, and I'd got a sketch of what I thought were all of Tom's best takes. And the other thing I do is I stack up options. So when I'm not sure about something, I will go, well, I think this one is probably what they're after, but then here's 4 other options underneath. So in a hurry, if Chris McQuarrie goes, what else did you pick? I can go, well, there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this. And he might go, okay, that gives me an idea. Let's put that one in, but then for now, and then let's go through and keep going to the end of the scene. And then let's come back and let's take another look at that line and see if there's a slightly better delivery. But now we know the intonation that we're after, or the emotional underpinning that we're trying to create for the audience. But I am super thorough.
Do you find that you're often on the same page as Christopher? I mean, talking about Rebecca Ferguson, Vanessa Kirby, 2 are literally the most talented actresses in the world. Like, they give you like anything you want, emotionally full, brilliant performances.
Yeah. But both
also
of them
Haley Atwell in this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you find sometimes it's difficult to know what Christopher's thinking, or you're sort of leaning towards performance and it's story you need?
The thing is that I lean into the process of everything is fluid, and I know full well that I will sketch something on the timeline so that we have something to react to, even if it's completely wrong. And Chris goes, "We're going to turn left," and you've turned right, because even if he was sitting with me, he wouldn't know, because he hasn't filmed the rest of the film yet. In his mind, production is gathering ingredients for the process of cooking, which is editing. So if you just have a pile of ingredients sitting on the table, you could make a curry, or you could make a stew, or you could make a pasta. It's like, what do you want? Anything you want. And so he is like, I don't actually know what I want. I just know that I found it. Like, in my mind, we have it in here somewhere, and whatever you think it is, and whatever I think it is, we will discover something else in the process of editing the film. And again, we don't cut any corners. We literally comb through the footage, every single take. We don't speed through it at all, because really that's where the movie comes to life. And even once we've got a first pass, we recut every scene 100 times, even after that. And as we're refining each, micro emotional beat in the movie to get it as precise and perfect as it can be, so that when the audience watch the film, it is effortless, and your eye is guided around the frame, and your hand is held emotionally, so you're in the character's point of view. You can feel what the character's feeling. That's the holy grail. And it just takes forever to get that, like, really good. And I mean, like, and quite often, same with Top Gun, actually, the movie is very good for quite a long time, but it doesn't become like excellent until the last couple of weeks, sometimes after like 2 years of work. It's the very fine details that really make it like click and bring things into focus. And we discovered some things quite late, even on Dead Reckoning Part 1, that really made quite a significant difference to the audience's perception of pace and
emotion, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's always about pace, really, because if the pace is perfect, then you've got no notes. With editing, you're always trying to get a as perfect a pace from beginning to end as you can, which is, incredibly difficult. And making sure that when you test the film and you show the film to audiences, that people are not going, well, that felt a bit long, which they did in a lot of this movie. The desert, in the Rome car chase, in the train sequence. There was a lot of places where they went, it just kind of went on a bit long. Like, we've seen Tom Cruise driving a BMW before. It's a bit long, but we ended up cutting out quite a lot of that chase and ended up with a really tight, compact version, which it's kind of almost over by the time it started, and the audience is like, wait, you're leaving them wanting more, which was always what Tom Cruise said. He said, you've got to leave them wanting more, apart from right at the end of the movie when they've got to feel like they've had a full meal, but at no point you don't want to stuff them too full.
I'm loving all these food analogies.
Yeah, otherwise they won't be able to appreciate the next course because they'll feel full. So we were really judicious about, combing through and stripping out non-essential shots, which obviously felt essential when they filmed them. But then in the fullness of time, you know what it's like. Stuff comes out for the greater good.
And it's so interesting because sometimes you, like you say, you don't need those things that you paid so much attention to and spent ages doing. But how do you balance that moment then between knowing when the audience needs to rest and have that little moment? Because I loved this film and I was on the edge of my seat throughout the whole thing. I was dying for a wee and I thought, do you know what? There might be a quiet bit I might be able to nip off. And every single time I was like, no, I need to be in here because this is important and interesting.
Like McHugh, he was like, I'm going to dare them to go and pee. From all the way through the movie, I'm going to dare them to go.
I didn't want to miss anything.
Yeah, you don't want to miss anything. And
Giles' bladder on the line.
We would be very careful with the way that we would use music cues. Like the transition from Rome to Venice is a place where a lot of audiences would get up for a pee because they were like, okay, the car chase is finished and we're going to Venice now, and there's going to be some chat before they get into the next exciting bit. Something. So I'm going off to pee. And so what McHugh did brilliantly is he had this music cue which built up over Tom walking out of the subway. Ethan walks out of the subway holding the steering wheel. He gets in the van with Benji and then the music starts to tickle and get you excited, and it starts to tickle and it starts to tickle. And then it comes in hard over Venice and you're like, oh, it's cool. It's Mission Impossible. I love this shit. Yeah. I'm not going to pee because I want to just see these great establishing shots. And then literally you cut to Simon Pegg putting the laptop down and going, now it's the White Widow and she put a price on your head in Paris. And you're like, oh shit, now we're back in. Oh, I can't miss this. I've got to stay a bit longer.
There's important information I need to know.
I know. So he's constantly finding the balance there. And it's almost always to do with music and what the music is signifying to the audience. But again, people say the film moves very fast, and it does, but we also take our time where we need to so that things land for the audience the way they need to as well.
How do you approach the emotional scenes? Because obviously we've been talking about pace, but for people to care about, as we've sort of discussed with Christopher, people to care about the pacing and the action, etc., they've got to care about the characters.
Yes.
How do you manage to make those things land whilst not losing them?
Listen, if you don't care about the characters, nothing matters, and it can take some filmmakers quite a while to actually realize that. We've all seen some quite experienced filmmakers who've just put their foot on the gas too hard through the movie, and so you're very confused and not attached, and it's a side effect of maybe too many studio notes, or they're just impatient with their own film or whatever, or the stuff just isn't there and they're just trying to cut through it as quickly as possible because they don't have the goods or whatever. But we are constantly aware of that, and we take time to introduce characters, and we take time to for you to connect with. But sometimes it doesn't take much either. Sometimes it can actually be quite a small moment. But when Ethan and Grace first meet in the airport, it's a long scene. When he's doing the stuff with the key and are you in or you're out, and she's like, you expect me to put it back and all that. It's quite a long scene, and we do, like, when they first bump into each other and they look at each other, we really take our time there. And she's like, oh, I get it. You didn't, you thought I was someone else. I'm not interested. There's quite a long beat there, but it's an essential beat. And so, I'll be honest with you, the scenes all start out very long because we we give every moment in every scene all the dramatic weight that we think it might need. So the scenes start out with a lot of pauses, a lot of dramatic pauses where we want the audience to feel something landing. But in the process of watching I've seen the film 700 times. I'm not exaggerating. When you, but in pieces, like each scene, in a day, we might watch one scene 50 or 60 times because we're going through it, over and over again. And we're peeling through it and we're looking at every moment and every reaction. And we're going, maybe we can tighten this. And there's a point in the editing process where you're literally trying to get as much air out of the movie as possible and just compress it as much as you can, because this movie started out, over 4 hours long, which is way too long, without an intermission. Gone with the Wind is 4 hours, but you had an intermission, so it's okay, but nowadays you can't do that. And so we never thought we'd get the film down to 2 hours 36, which is what it is now. And
which felt quite lean, actually.
Yeah, no. I'm thrilled that you say that. Like Spider-Verse is a long movie, Guardians was a long movie, Indy's a long movie. I don't know how long. Well, Oppenheimer is 3 hours. We know that. I don't know how long Barbie is, but there's a lot of long movie around at the moment. And so, The Flash was quite long. Actually, I saw that on Sunday, and that was like 2 hours 20 as well.
Not gone in The Flash.
No, but I did. I actually loved it. So, what happens when you're editing is, there will come a time where the scene gets too tight and it just whizzes by and there's no emotion.
Yes, you've hacked into it too much. Yes.
We've gone too far now. Yeah. And you get to that point with every scene. And then you go, okay, we've gone too far. Now we need to just go, we need to just put back 6 frames here and 8 frames there, 4 frames there. And then we watch it and we're like, okay, now the scene is as tight as it can be, but it still has emotion where we need it to have, So, and we go through every shot in the movie like that. And no exaggeration, just hundreds of times we go through the film, because Chris and Tom know that they want to make mass entertainment that has a chance of having a decades-long shelf life, a modern classic. If God willing, not every film turns out like that, even though no one sets out to make a bad film, obviously. Of course. But to have the weird, strange chemistry of filmmaking, which results in certain films becoming classics that you do not just forget about, and you're like you actually quite like rewatching in the years coming, and people are still watching the original Top Gun. Yeah. People are still watching Gone with the Wind. Like there's probably 5,000 TVs in the world right now with Gone with the Wind showing.
I think for me, so much of it is about the supporting characters that give the films the heart, because obviously you've got to have the Tom Cruise, you've got to have that hero like driving it forward. He's the the train or the helicopter or whatever. Yes, but it's those side characters that have these quirks and charms and those emotional hooks that. They stick with you and they're poignant.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's those little moments between the characters which are great fun. And then, of course, when you're with Grace, on the train, you don't see Vanessa Kirby. You see Grace.
It's amazing.
That really threw me, actually.
You know what I mean? It's really crazy because you feel connected to Hayley Atwell, not Vanessa Kirby in a weird way, because Vanessa is so good at of doing do you see what I mean?
And the eye thing as well.
Yeah, I didn't know if you noticed that. That's very smart. I noticed that we changed her eyes to brown. Which is obviously one of those things that you can only do on a movie with a gigantic budget, where you're like, let's just make her eyes brown in every shot, which is doing that
rather than putting lenses in beforehand.
Yeah, contact lenses, or just not doing anything.
Exactly. Let's talk about action then, because cutting that, Top Gun, for instance, is a perfect example, but keeping it on mission maybe, or feel free to go between the two. But that train scene, for example, it was stunning. We're literally going, there's someone next to Dom literally throwing a popcorn.
She was literally like gasping. It was like she was in the train. Every explosion, like at the end was like hyperventilating. Like that's how into the scene. And that's what you want from the audience.
Yeah. So how do you go about cutting that, and what's the process behind a brilliant action scene?
Okay, so it's stakes always, and caring for the characters. That's all that matters. It's like, what happens if they succeed? What happens if they don't succeed? You have to understand that before you get into the sequence, right? And then a little tiny Easter egg for you. I wonder when is this? I mean, this is really inside baseball, but when Gabriel is going, Ethan, when we cut to the train and the whistle, when he's holding the lighter, that was actually Tom Cruise doing Esai Morales at that point, because Tom was like, this is exactly what I want it to sound like. And so he just did it one day.
I just did the line. Classic.
He just did the line because this is how he wanted the emotion to come across.
That's amazing.
So that was quite fun. But
yes.
So
action
the point
scene.
is that you see them, Ethan and Grace, coming out of the locomotive and going down to the coal tender and starting to do something, and you're like, what are I'm imagining the audience doesn't quite know, but they're with them because they love these two characters. And then eventually you see that they're decoupling the locomotive so that it will continue to just speed along the tracks. And then the rest of the train car will slow down and everyone will survive. And also Ethan says to Briggs and Degas on the roof of the train, he says, you have to do exactly what I say or everyone on this train is going to die, something like that. Yeah. And so you know that Ethan has a plan. And then everyone, the moment that the brakes engage, the air brakes, you're like, okay, I know what Ethan and Grace are doing now. They're trying to stop the train so that everyone survives. And then the train carriage doesn't stop, and then they're climbing up. But you're so invested in them surviving, and also you've seen them. Gabriel lock the door earlier because the entities told them what's going to happen. So
that was deliberate anxiety setting earlier.
Tiny setups where the camera pushed in on the lock earlier in the scene are now paying off deliciously. And the time when Grace runs through the kitchen, right? Yes. We deliberately had a shot of her running through the kitchen, and you were like, why is she running through a kitchen? And then, of course, at the other end, you're like, oh my God, they've got to go through the kitchen. And there's all this oil and it's all like shit. Burning. And this is awful. Yeah. And the scene, again, all the scenes started out much longer, like twice as long. And they just went on too long. And, so we ended up literally cutting them down to the absolute bare minimum, like to the frame of what you needed to feel excited. There was a whole section. So then they come out of the car and she's on fire, and then they slide down the carriage. Then there's the 0G moment where everyone goes, where Ethan and Grace fly up in 0G. And that again was Tom going, everyone loves the 0G moment. We've got to get that in there.
God, it's wrong.
He's a smart guy, that Tom. I know, it really works. But then when they landed, there was then a whole nother bit of action in that car. But it went on too long. So we just cut to them like coming out and running into the final car, the blue carriage, which is where the furniture slides. And then there's the grand piano, which is just like, and also if you've paid attention, you can hear a piano playing earlier in the movie. Like the White Widow walks past the woman playing the piano, and then Briggs and Degas are having a chat. So and interestingly, if you listen, the piano is playing I've Got You Under My Skin, the Cole Porter song, which is like the White Widow, the mask. And do you see what I mean? Like it's all just a little nod there. But we're setting up the piano like 40 minutes earlier so that when the grand piano is hanging above them, you're like, oh my God, it's the piano. Yes, how are they ever going to get out of this? Oh my God. And then there's a great piece of, again, like character behavior where Ethan goes, do you trust me? And Grace shakes her head, which they discovered on the set. They literally were playing with the scene, and she said, I've got an idea. I'm just going to do something fun. And Ethan said, do you trust me? Do you trust me? And she just shook her head. And literally the whole crew started laughing. You can hear on the take, everyone's laughing. And then he's like, no, do you trust me? And then she shakes her, she nods, and then he turns around. And that tiny moment of humor does so much for the audience because they're so stressed at that point. And then they laugh. And there's a moment where everyone just relaxes for a bit, and then the tension just starts to crank up again as he's like begging her to jump across, and the thing's giving way. That. It's just like all that proper Mission Impossible suspense, fun stuff.
Perfect. So do you edit it the same way you would like a dialogue scene? Do you go, all right, let's put this through story beat?
For the action, I'm trying to find the most dynamic piece of action, and the most interesting, shots with the best composition and the best speed and the best dynamics. And then when I'm going through performance for like a chat between Ethan and Grace like that, I'm trying to find the moments of truth in their characters. Haley did an amazing job of like you really feel that she's terrified in that moment, genuinely. And so your job as an editor is to find those tiny moments where the actor is 100% truthful in their performance. And ultimately, editing is simply about storytelling. And how do you want to manipulate the audience's emotions with every single cut that you have in the movie from beginning to end? Like, what new information are you giving the audience, and how is that changing their emotional connection to what they've just experienced before? And you're constantly trying to build a kind of roller coaster graph of like peaks and troughs, so that it's not kind of at one level all the time. It's got a variety, because variety is the key to freshness, and so we're constantly trying to use the pace of the cuts and the number of close-ups that we use and how the sound is mixed, so that there's variety in the intensity of the sound mix, where we use music. So you'll notice in the piano bit, in fact, in the whole scene with the train cars going over, there's no score at all. In fact, the score stops when Ethan, I'm trying to think, I think it's when Gabriel falls off the truck. I think that's where the score stops. Anyway, falls off into the truck, I mean, and then it's totally dry. Even the shots of the bridge with the little countdown is just literally the sound of the beep, 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 and then the distant whistle of the train. And so we lean heavily on no score, so that your ears have a break, because it's been pounding score all the way through the fight before that.
I think that's one of the biggest mistakes a lot of filmmakers make. And it sort of comes back to what you were talking about earlier with action, and also with performance and score and everything, is thinking that more is more. Yeah. And actually, like a 2-minute action sequence where there's one moment where the characters are really in it, and there's like 1 or 2 stunts that are shown clearly and they're done very, very well, is infinitely better than 15 minutes of just 100%. Chaos and shaky cam and craziness.
Yeah, I mean, we quite often do start off long, but we're very disciplined about getting it to the length where it is just it's a perfect course, or it's a perfect seasoning, at that part of the movie of just what you need. And and then so the music all the way through the piano, there's no music, and then the piano crashes down, and then Ethan says, "Don't look down," and they start. There's a shot of the decoupler giving way. Then the starts, and then it builds all the way through to with them hanging there, which again, that was much longer originally, loads longer, and we had options where Grace was. We had options of that scene where Grace had made the decision to let Ethan live, and she was going to die, and she was like, let me go, you have the key, you've got to do. And so she was literally telling Ethan, you have to let me go, because we're both going to die, and I want you to survive. So there was all kinds of emotions that we were playing with there, but in the end we just kept it very positive. Like, Ethan was never going to give up, and he was always trying to hold on to her, and she was trying to like get foothold, but then you could slowly see that he was giving way, and you're thinking, how are they ever going to get out of this? And then, of course, you have that delicious reveal at the end, which I won't spoil, just in case people haven't seen the film. Yeah. But it's again one of those things where you go, yes, that's so good. Yeah. I'm so pleased that character is still there. And
I thought she was a goner.
I know, exactly. And even though she is a literal mass murderer in the film, you're like really happy to see her back, because she's so cool, and she's got like amazing fashion sense.
Was there any moments that you really fought for in the movie that as a sort of an editor, maybe because obviously as a filmmaker you've got one kind of vision of the film, maybe how you saw it initially and how you were sort of on the shoot. As an editor, you've got something that's subjective. Maybe you have a different perspective. Were there any scenes where you like really said fought your corner and said I really think this should go in, or honest, I really think this works?
There are moments where I said to Chris, this has to go. Because and he would fight to keep them, which he's the director and he has every right to do whatever he likes, right? I never, if he wants to feel the movie with stuff in, let's do it. I never fight it. But there were a couple of scenes like in literally the last 2 weeks where I was going, this has to go. And we're making a deleted images reel for the Blu-ray where you'll see a lot of this stuff. like, and you'll see little bits of scenes that we lifted out wholesale. It's just to music. There's no dialogue. And we did the same on Fallout. I don't know if you guys have seen the Fallout one, but there was a whole scene in the Grand Palais in Fallout where Henry Cavill, so August Walker, his character's name was, and Ethan Hunt are trying to get down to the dance floor, and they end up having to do this gigantic swing in the Grand Palais. It was very impressive, but it was just 4 minutes of screen time that we couldn't afford to have. And so usually I'm the one who's suggesting that we cut stuff out as a way of reducing the running time. Sometimes I'm saying put stuff in, and I'm wrong. And Chris goes, do you know what? I think we can lose it. And then the audience doesn't bump on it and we're fine, you know? So yes, that does happen.
Yeah. What about tips for directors working with editors, or the other way around, editors working with directors from your point of view?
Okay. Honestly, the best tip I can give everybody is that everybody to understand that editing is a process. And like anything creative, it starts off very average and sometimes poor. Okay. Any first draft of a script, or usually the first take of any setup, anything that you do first is maybe 1% of the time there's some magic there, but most of the time you're still finding your way through whatever it is you're doing. And every director, when they watch a first assembly, feels physically sick because the movie is so far from anything that they wanted. All right. Yeah. And that is David Lean felt like that. You know, Steven Spielberg feels like that. James Cameron feels like that. But they know to trust the process, and they know that you've got to get to work and start finding the best movie that exists in the footage, because it might be different to what was thought of on the page or on the set. Right. And you've got to keep working at it, and don't try and shortcut things. Just do the work and really interrogate and confront every moment in the film. And by every moment, I mean literally every shot, and then down to every frame eventually. And look at every emotional beat that you're creating, you know, that culminates in scenes and then sequences and then the whole movie. And make sure that you are that everything is clear, it's not too long, that the audience is feeling what you hope they're feeling from beginning to end, and embrace the testing process of showing your movie to a cold audience, and then listen to what they say. Never deny it, because it's their opinion and it's correct, because it's their truth for how they saw the film. And listen to it, and if it's uncomfortable, and it always is, because you always think, shit, they didn't get that, I really hope they had got that, and what are we going to do? Just stay calm, trust the process, take some time, think about what you can do. There's usually an editorial solution. If there isn't, shoot some pickups, you know, figure out a way to maybe add a couple of extra lines of dialogue to clarify something elegantly. But that's my main tip, really, is just trust the process. Yeah. And give yourself enough time to really focus on the post-production of the movie. And, you know, you won't have got it right on the page, and you won't have got it right on the set. That's just a fact. It's like, we're all human, and creativity. I'm pretty sure James Cameron is still discovering stuff on Avatar, you know, in the last 2 weeks of the edit, after 7 years of editing. Yeah. That's how long those movies take. 7 years. Wow. So, you know, the greatest filmmakers have to confront their work and admit when it's not great, and fix it if you want the movie to work for as many people as possible. So that's basically it. Don't expect to have all the answers. You know, trust the process and enjoy the ride, and stay calm, and it will all work out eventually.
And trust the people around you.
Trust the people around you. Yeah, exactly. Trust your collaborators.
This has been an enormous pleasure, and we absolutely loved the movie, and all of the ones you've been involved in.
I'm so grateful. You know, after 3 years of really hard work, it's enormously gratifying to hear that people like you guys, you know, people who love movies, really enjoyed it. Oh yeah, and that just makes me so happy. So thank you so much.
And Top Gun in a big way. Definitely like one of my absolute, like last year. That was the one for me. I'm
so pleased. We can absolutely do a conversation about Top Gun another time. I've got back-to-back interviews on this movie at the moment, but I'm happy to do a kind of retrospective, like, we like a couple of years have gone by and you want to have a chat about it, or whatever it is that you want to do, I can tell you about, losing and being Oscar nominated and losing on the night, which is a strange cocktail of emotions.
But this was perfectly edited. It really was.
Bless you. It was a team effort, but that's very kind. But so I wasn't expecting to win, but there's still like 5% of you that thinks, well, you never know. I probably should have. I don't forget to thank Tom Cruise and my wife. You know what I mean? So there we go.
Yes.
Anyway,
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us on the Filmmakers Podcast. Top man.
Pleasure.
Perfect.
Wonderful.
Right. Amazing.
Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Catch you soon.
Bye-bye.
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 So there we have it. That's Eddie Hamilton. What a guy.
Eddie, the editor.
Wow.
That was like the hottest, all of us in our rooms on a baking summer day interview, probably in history. It
really is.
Yeah.
Steaming. So listen, thank you so much for listening.
Not as hot as Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, which you should go and see at the cinema right now.
You really should. It's amazing. I'm going to go catch that extra special performance where they're showing it on the side of... Well, what did he call it?
It's called the Screen X. It's at Cineworld, and basically it's like the sides have stuff sort of going in your peripheral vision. And it's quite crazy. I saw Top Gun with it, and it's it's pretty outrageous. Yeah, it's good. It is good.
I'm going to go watch that. I can't wait. Honestly, I loved it. I love this movie. I've always loved Mission Impossible. So for me, this is an absolute joy to sit with the filmmakers and chat about it. So I hope you've enjoyed our deep dive into our Mission Impossible here. Not only with Christopher McQuarrie last week, the whole hour special. If you've not listened to that, go listen to it. And this one with the amazing Simon Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson, and of course, Hamilton.
Mission Impossible.
Yes, indeed. Go out there, make your films. Yeah. Believe in yourself. It can happen. Get writing those scripts. Get meeting people.
It will happen.
And believe in it. And it is not Mission Impossible. It is possible. You can make films. So, till next Tuesday, if you're lucky enough to rise up and do well, it is your duty to...
It is your duty to...
Go on, send the train.
It's your duty to send that... No, let me do it.
Send the train.
It is your duty to send... It is your duty to send that train crashing over the side of the exploding bridge all the way back down to the next person.
And in that time, hopefully you've made a couple of films and passed on that glorious information you've learnt along the way. Till then, beautiful people, take care.
Exactly.
Bye-bye.